Hello everyone, this is lecture 4, Organizational Culture. In the previous lecture, we learned structural approach which tries to make organizations more systematic and efficient. On one hand, culture is the most complex and ambiguous dimensions of organizations. So this is the most challenging part for my instruction, but I did my best, so please see it. First of all, we need to address what culture is. There have been a huge number of definitions of culture, especially sociologists have addressed what culture is. This is a definition of culture among many introduced in our textbook, but I really like it. This is long, but we can find some keywords here like shared basic assumption, a group, and buried, and two new members. So I may say culture is something like shared basic assumptions that are considered to be buried among group members not only in the current but in the future. Please note that this is a definition of culture in general. This lecture will focus on organizational culture. Tricey and Bayer provide a succinct definition, the pattern of shared meaning in an organization. In other words, studying organizational culture is to know what it means rather than what it happens in an organization. Here, to illustrate how culture makes meaning different, let me give you an example of national culture. This is flying fish. Japanese people recognize this as very beautiful. So the killer phrase for ladies when I was young was, "You're beautiful like flying fish." And if I say this to Japanese ladies, what happens is they will become so happy. "Thank you, sugar." I was so confident about this compliment, so I tried this to the US ladies. And what happened is slap. This example tells you how important understanding culture is. I just gave you a story of national culture, but it's not just joking. We'd better know the relationship between national culture and organizational culture. Empirical evidences of Hofstede and House shows that national culture has greater impact on workers' values than does their organizational culture. In particular, it shows clear distinctions between workers in English-speaking countries and Asian workers, such as individualism versus groupism. We'll address the details in the next video. But this does not mean that your co-workers from foreign countries are totally different from you. For instance, I'm only Japanese at Rutgers SPAA, but not many people speak English in my country. Also, few public officials quit government to work in the US. In this vein, I have higher capacity to work in American culture than ordinary Japanese people. So we ran there are several forms of culture: national culture, local culture, ethnic culture, and organizational culture, and they interact with each other. From here to the end, this video will focus on what organizational culture is. Unfortunately, there is no agreed way among academic scholars to analyze elements of organizational culture, so I chose Shane's 3 levels of organizational culture among many. These 3 levels do not show from bottom to top like hierarchy. Instead, they show depths of culture. Here, higher levels mean higher difficulties to observe cultural elements. So level 1 is the most observable elements of organizational culture. For instance, logos, uniform, rituals, ceremonies, or special words used in an organization. And then we go deeper into human's mind, level 2, basic values. At this level, organizational culture determines the meaning of workers' behavior, what it should be. For instance, in an organization, senior workers always help young workers develop their skills. And we first go into the deepest level of organizational culture, level 3, basic assumptions. At this level, even organizational members are not aware of these assumptions in daily life. In other words, when we understand these least observable elements of organizational culture, we can be a full member of that organization. From the next slide, we'll start to see the details of these basic elements of organizational culture. Shane, 1992, identified the 4 key dimensions of basic assumption in an organizational culture. The first, workers' perception on organizational environment. The second dimension is the nature of reality and the basis for decisions, such as whether decisions are based on tradition or scientific evidence. An example of subdimension in decision-making is the nature of time and space. For example, when a manager asks a young subordinate to finish a task, that young worker might take 1 day in an organization, but in another organization, young worker might take just 2 hours within 1 day. Also, that young worker might have more discretion about how to complete that task than those who in other organizations. The third dimension is the nature of human nature. For instance, in business school, students are more likely to view humans as profit-oriented than students in public administration school, since they are also profit-oriented. The last dimension is the nature of human activity. Workers in Google might share the assumption that they should be more innovative than Microsoft. Once again, please note that these assumptions are deeply rooted in human minds or spirits, so it's quite difficult for researchers to identify effects of organizational culture at this level. These assumptions might be affected more by national culture, regional culture, or ethnic culture. This is the end of this video. In the next video, we will learn what organizational values are and effects of those values on organizations. And that is a core part of cultural studies in management. See you there.